Recording has started.
Okay, Chair Schmidt, I have 5:46. Okay, now do you want to introduce the meeting?
Could you do that, please?
Okay. This is Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Complaint Committee of the City and County of San Francisco. This is a regular meeting taking place in hearing room 408, City Hall. Number 1, Dr. Carlton B. Goodlett Place, San Francisco, California. Remote meeting via video conference. That information is bit.ly/3ZRASW3. The password is sunshine. Public comment call-in 415-655-0001. Meeting ID 2489-090-8848 #. Press *3 to enter the speaker line. Today's date is March 21st, 2023. Chair Schmidt, do you want to read meeting decorum?
To you also.
All right. Meeting decorum. Any member of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force may call for decorum due to disorderly conduct of meeting participants. Persons who engage in threatening and or menacing behavior may be asked to leave. Item number 1, call to order, roll call, and agenda changes. I'm not aware of any agenda. Hang on a second.
You have one question, which is in full task force meeting, there was some initial, I don't know if you call it confusion, but there was some discussion about who can appear remote. And I wonder if those are the same today as they were a few weeks ago about the public
Appearing remotely?
Including giving public comment.
Okay, Victor, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is something that Angela Cavijo, our clerk of the board, will be addressing at the April task force hearing.
Okay.
My apologies, I didn't hear the question as
I'm having a hard time.
into the microphone.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Oh,
Still,
he changed chairs.
Change your seat.
Go ahead,
Supposed to be there.
that microphone.
I'm sorry.
there you go.
Okay. Yeah, the question is, I wonder what the protocol is today as to remote callers, whether they can speak, including those who might wish to give public comment. Is it the same
Our
protocol?
status is that we are allowing it. Everything is status quo. We will be allowing public comment and public participation via remote system. The only change is that members must be in person unless they receive authorization from DHR to be remote.
Okay, so parties can also attend remotely?
Yes, we have not heard otherwise.
Okay, thank you. No other agenda changes.
I'm not aware of any agenda changes. Anybody else? Okay. Let's do roll call. Member Wolf.
Present.
Member Wolf present. Member Stein.
Present.
Member Stein present. Chair Schmidt.
Present.
Chair Schmidt present. We have a quorum. Okay. Are we ready for item number 2?
Yes, please.
Item number 2, approval of the February 14, 2023 Complaint Committee meeting minutes. I have a copy of the minutes right here. Does anybody have any changes they'd like to make?
I do not.
Okay.
No changes from me.
Okay. Member Stein?
No changes here.
No changes? Okay. Changes.
So I can make a motion to approve the minutes.
Hang on, I just want to hear from you. Member Wolf, do you have any changes to the minutes?
No changes, and I'll second
Okay.
that motion.
One Stein. And 2 is Member Wolf. Okay, great. Okay. Okay. Let's see, item 2.
Can you folks see me?
Yeah, we can.
Oh, you
I
can.
can.
Well, I can only see you because of where I'm sitting. I have a kind of view of Cheryl's desk,
Oh,
but
it's
we
not
can't
coming
see you
through.
on the monitor that's in front of us.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I can see you in my monitor, in Cheryl's monitor.
Really? Oh, haha, that's really hard to see.
Okay.
I'm looking at you right now. Okay.
Do we want to open this up for public comment?
Yes, please.
Mr. Young, are you aware of any public commenters?
Mhm. So if anybody would like to make public comment, if you can so indicate by raising your hand, it would be appreciated. I believe that is, I forgot, *3 if you're on the telephone, or otherwise using the application to raise your hand. Okay. I will unmute our first caller. Hello, caller, I've unmuted you. You can begin your public comment.
Hello, this is Michael Petrellis calling, and I'd like to speak up for funding from the Board of Supervisors to air the full meetings of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force. And I think it's really important that the monthly meetings of the full task force visually air on SF.gov TV. And that's my comment.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any other parties with their hands raised for public comment at this time. I believe we can close public comment.
Let's take a vote. Member Stein.
Aye.
Member Stein, aye. Member Wolf.
Aye.
Member Wolf, aye. Chair Schmidt.
Aye.
Chair Schmidt. 3 in favor of approval of the February 14, 2023 meeting minutes. Are we ready for item 3?
Yes, please.
Item number 3, public comment. Members of the public may address the committee on matters that are within the committee's jurisdiction but not on today's agenda.
Again, this is Victor Young, running the remote line tonight. If there's anybody who would like to make public comment at this time, you can press *3 if you're on the telephone, or otherwise raise your hand if you're using the application. And if there's anybody in the room who'd like to make public comment, you may approach the podium at this time. I am not seeing any indications for public comment at this time.
Okay.
I guess
Should we
can.
close public comment?
Yeah, let's close public comment and we can call the next item.
Item number 4, file number 22134, complaint filed by Michael Petrellis against Mayor London Breed for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6721 by failing to respond to a public records request in a timely and/or complete manner.
All right, we're in the section where we look at petitions or complaints, as sometimes we call them. The procedure we're going to follow is that we'll start with, for each case, we will start with up to 3 minutes from the parties to tell us about your case, with the understanding that we've already looked at your documentation. So please there's no need to just give us a repeat of what's in the paperwork. After the 3 minutes from the petitioner first, and then the respondent, there will be a period where the members may ask questions of the parties. And after that, we will deliberate amongst ourselves and determine primarily what to do with your case, whether to send it for hearing before the full task force. We will look at questions of, is this a case involving public records or public meetings? Does the task force have jurisdiction? We may choose to make recommendations, and we will quite often go ahead and send the matter on for a separate hearing before the full task force. This is a committee, and the rules do not permit us to make any final decisions. Final decisions are all made by the full task force. Okay, with that being said, I believe Mr. Petros has already appeared, so let's go ahead. Let's see if the respondent is here. That would be someone from the mayor's office.
A point of order, Mr. Chair.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I'm sorry, I meant to mention this during the approval of the agenda or the review of the agenda. I'm wondering if this item and the next item, they seem to be the same. I see Member Stein shaking her head.
Yeah, well, I think you think that because at the front of the packet, the same request that was in item at the front of number 5 is the same request that was at the front of number 4. But when you read deeper into number 5, it's actually about a Prop G calendar request. It's not about, the logs for the Sunshine Ordinance request or the public records request. So it has like some repetitive documentation that's not for that file at the top of it, but then the rest is about the actual case.
But the original letter of request is not at the top of the page. Okay.
Yeah, correct.
That makes it very confusing.
Yeah.
In reviewing. I'm only going to read so many pages in, and if it looks the same, that's what's happening here. So, okay, thank you.
All right, and no need to stand again. I recognize, I believe Mr. Heckel is here for the respondent. Yes. Is that correct? Thank you. And so we have both of the parties here. Let's proceed. First, Mr. Petrelis, you have up to 3 minutes when Ms. Leger is ready with the timer to time you.
Mr. Petrelis, you ready to begin?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead, sir.
Hi, everyone. I just started my own timer so that I don't go over 3 minutes. I want to start off by saying that I believe I tried to combine these two complaints into one complaint since there was one office I was complaining against, that being the mayor's office. I thought it would be easier for the task force, the mayor's office, and myself if we had just one complaint. But I was informed by Cheryl, each complaint needs to be separate. With that said, regarding this complaint, the mayor's office, again, engaged in delaying tactics in asking what exactly I wanted. Could I be could I define more what I was looking for? The mayor's office claimed they had hundreds of files, but there was no proof of it. I am very suspicious when a public official claims that high number of files and I have no proof. And then finally, my records show that the mayor's office finally fulfilled the request for the documents on December 5th. That was way after I had made the original request. So everything was provided to me on December 5th. That's what I want to say.
Thank you. All right, we can hear from Mr. Heckel from the mayor's office. Cheryl, are you ready?
You ready, sir? Okay.
I'm Hank Heckel, Legal Compliance Officer in the Office of Mayor Breed, here to respond to Mr. Petrellis' complaint, file 22134. Yeah, I mean, just to add to what Mr. Petrellis already described, we received a request from him at the end of September of 2022. It was related to almost a year's worth of all public records requests received from our office. So basically, he was requesting information about all requests we received from January 1st to September 26, 2022. So from that point on, we engaged with Mr. Petrellis to understand the scope of his request and, whether there were any particular topics or a subset of issues that he was interested in. As noted, the mayor's office receives hundreds of requests a year. And so we had some back and forth, and I think Mr. Petrellis asked if we had a log of requests, which we didn't have. We don't keep a log of requests, but we did provide some information on sort of current numbers of requests we'd received in a month, in recent months, and we identified some of the topics of those requests. And that sort of back and forth went on for several weeks. And then when it was clear that Mr. Petrellis just sort of wanted to maintain the request for all of the sort of meta request for all other sunshine requests for 3/4 of 2022, we began providing those on a rolling basis. The various hundreds of requests we'd received up until that point, and we sent those to Mr. Petrellis and completed the request, and didn't hear anything further other than this complaint, but happy to answer questions from the committee as to our response.
Okay, let's see if we do have any questions. Members, questions for the parties.
I have a couple of just quick questions. First, for the petitioner and the respondent, on what date did you begin to provide or release the requested records? I know, Mr. Petrellis, you said that the request was fulfilled on December 5th, but when did records actually start to be released?
I'm just looking through the file, members' time.
I didn't see it in the file, so that's why I'm asking. And I want to see if you're in agreement with each other about it. So, Mr. Petrellis, do you know what date you first started receiving the records? I know you said you hadn't received any on the day that you filed, on 11/7, the day you filed the complaint, but when did you start to receive them?
I think it was November 7th, if I can answer that. We had some back and forth on whether he would, wanted to focus the request on particular issues or types of requests, and then he had asked about a log, and we said we didn't have a log, and then we explained that we identified some of the types of requests, the different topics that were addressed through different requests in recent months, and then sort of hearing nothing further about sort of further narrowing or focusing of the scope, we just began producing all of the responsive requests on a rolling basis. I mean, we sent those through several emails because of a large volume of records, but I believe that began on November 7th and was concluded on December 8th.
And Mr. Petrellis, are you in agreement that you started receiving the records on November 7th?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so then the way I understand it, this is a question for you, Mr. Heckel. I think in the packet, in the notes, you say that you say on October 20th that you will begin sending the records, but then you send the first record November 7th, which is 17 days later. So would you say that this was provided in a timely manner? Or would you like to acknowledge that these records were not provided in a timely manner?
I mean, I don't know if I would. I don't know if I would say that. There was a little bit of ambiguity in terms of what Mr. Petrellis was asking for when we sent him a list of the topics and an estimate of the number of requests. I think he responded on October 20th, kind of asking the same question about the number of requests and the like a log. So I think it was a little bit unclear if he had not sort of seen our previous responses. So, after seeing his last response, which I think was on October 20th.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Right. I mean, I think at that point it seemed that, there wasn't much point in like further negotiation or back and forth, so that we began preparing the records.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking if you would acknowledge it is because the way we're processing things now is if you do acknowledge it, then it's something that might just go to a consent calendar that, the first records come 17 days after you say you're going to begin to send them. And that's, once it's sort of clear what it is that you need to send, but not that you have to, but that's why I ask that question.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you. And I just to clarify, I think we finished the production on December 5th. Not the 8th. The print was very small in these email copies.
Okay, so then you're both in agreement on the timeline.
Yes, yes.
All right, those are all my questions.
Any questions, Member Wolf?
Nope, I'm good. Member Stein covered it.
Okay. Is there agreement from the parties that there's no remaining contention that records that were requested have not been yet produced? Mr. Petrellis, have you received what you asked for?
Yes. I'm not waiting for further I'm not waiting for further records related to what I call the logs of sunshine requests, and I believe they should be maintaining that log. But to answer your question, sir, yes, I have received the records I've requested.
Okay. Do you believe that the non-maintenance of a log is something that we should be considering part of your complaint here today?
Yeah, I find it just so implausible that the mayor's office, and we have a strong mayor's office in San Francisco, and they are supposedly receiving hundreds of sunshine requests annually, but not maintaining a log. To me, that doesn't pass the smell test, especially after, I'd say, a good 12 years of getting FOIA logs from the FBI in Washington, D.C., and the CDC in Atlanta. I just find it quite derelict that the requests are not kept in a central location for them to just grab hold of them. I don't know that that is good record maintenance. And if they were doing this about the calendars, for example, I would question how they are creating and maintaining records.
Do you have any, let's call it legal basis, under state or local law in California as opposed to FOIA, that you would rely on to claim that there's some kind of a violation by not providing a log?
No, I cannot address that question.
Okay. Thank you.
It may exist. What you're asking for in state or local law that the mayor's office or the head of a department needs to maintain a sunshine request folder, I do not know. It's a really damn good question.
Okay. And Mr. Heckel, do you have any reason to think that there's a legal requirement that a log be kept?
No, my understanding is there's no legal requirement in the State Public Records Act or the Sunshine Ordinance that a municipal department keep a log of requests.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions from me at this time. So we can move to discussion among the members. Any thoughts on how to move this case?
So I have a question because I cannot remember now what the status, what the requirements are to be on the consent calendar, whether there has to be an acknowledgement by all the parties that they agree that, something happened, or whether we can decide that it should be on the consent calendar because, we can see that these records were later than they're supposed to be. So dependent, and I thought maybe Bruce, you can speak to that.
Yeah. So generally, if there is, it's based on the admission of the respondent. So the question is go back to the form. Are they declaring no contest? Are they admitting non-compliance? Those would be the two tests.
Okay. All right.
Now, if there's agreement, if we feel that the respondent has, has testified non-compliance, then yeah, we can move it. Consent calendar.
My thought is that in this case, I believe that the mayor's office considered that they were trying to figure out whether the scope might be something that could be reduced. If that weren't a factor, I could see possibly putting this on the consent calendar, despite not having a signed agreement to do so. But that's a case that we may run into in another case. But to me, we don't have to resolve that issue right now. I don't think this is a consent calendar case.
Well, the question is if the respondent has a defense argument that would change, a result of noncompliance. If they're admitting noncompliance, and they don't want it, and the parties don't want to show up, and they want kind of a summary judgment in that way, then why not?
Well, I was going to say, so because here's what I see is that there is an attempt to narrow down the request for records, and I think that was good because it was a pretty voluminous request. But as of 10/20, I think it was clear that there was no narrowing down the records, and then the first records get released about 17 days later. So a little bit outside, well, significantly outside, I guess, of the 10-day time frame. So the question is then, if you're trying to then release things on a rolling basis, is 17 days too long or not? That's the question I have.
I'm in agreement with all of that. And I think that because people could come to a different opinion on whether it is or isn't, maybe that's a reason why technically it's not something that would go on the consent calendar. That's my own thought.
Okay.
It does seem like we're all looking at the same thing here. These are public records. They've all been produced, and we certainly have jurisdiction. And I think we're all seeing this as a timing case.
So here's an option maybe. If the respondent wants to fill out the form as they should have when they receive the notice of complaint, they may want to review it, and if they feel that they want to, plead no contest or non-compliance, then a decision can be made by the chair of the task force to put it on a consent calendar when he creates the agenda. I mean, I'd leave it up to the party to make that decision. That's what usually drives the consent agenda anyway.
Would you be open to giving that as an option to the mayor's office to do that after we do what we're going to do with the case here today, but before the task force hearing? Okay. All right. Any motions?
This is Member Stein. I can say I make a motion that these are public records under our jurisdiction and to forward it to the task force for consideration of a violation of 67.21 for timeliness.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, if there's anybody who'd like to make public comment on this matter, you can approach the podium at this time if you are in person, or raise your hand if you are on the remote system, either by pressing *3 on the telephone or using the application to raise your hand. I'll give everyone a few moments to make their indications. Okay, I do not see anybody interested in providing public comment at this time.
Hang on a second.
All right, let's vote.
Just a second. Member Stein?
Aye.
Member Stein, aye. Member Wolf?
Aye.
Member Wolf, aye. Chair Schmidt?
Aye.
Chair Schmidt, aye. 3 in favor. Moved by Member Stein, seconded by Member Wolf, that the records are public, there is jurisdiction, and to forward the matter to the task force, recommending a violation of 6721 for timeliness.
No, for consideration of 6721, not recommending.
Okay.
Can I make one comment, which is that
Please.
I think it would be helpful if either the respondent or the petitioner wanted to put into the packet the date when the first documents were released and the date when the conclusion of those documents or the conclusion of the release occurred, because I don't think that's in the current packet, and it would just help the full task force to understand those dates.
Thank you. Okay, when we're ready for the next case, I believe.
Item number 5, file number 22135, complaint filed by Michael Petrellis against Mayor London Breed for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6721 by failing to respond to a public records request in a timely and/or complete manner.
All right, same parties, a related case. Let's hear first from Mr. Petrellis.
And I've started my timer. This is Michael Petrellis again. The 2 points I want to make, I'll start with the first point, which is Section 67.29 of the Prop G, calendars of certain officials. And the last line in the first paragraph is abundantly clear. It says that the record shall be available to any requester 3 business days subsequent to the calendar entry date. I don't believe the mayor's office adhered to that section of the calendar law. Because I made my request, I believe in September. I'm not sure right now on that month. It's so many months ago, but I am sure of one thing, and this is my second point. The closure, the provision finally of all the records requested came from Hank on March 13th of this year. And I think that is a very big violation. That's my comment.
Thank you. All right, we can hear from Mr. Heckel from the mayor's office now.
Okay, just a second. You ready, sir?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Hank Heckel, Compliance Officer, Mayor Breed's office, here to respond to Mr. Petrellis' request, complaint file 22135. So the Office of the Mayor received Mr. Petrellis' request on October 22nd and initially responded on Tuesday, October 25th. Within 3 days, providing approximately 2 months worth of calendar entries. Mr. Petrellis' request was for almost an entire year's worth of calendar entries from the mayor's Prop G calendar from January 1 to October 24th. We informed Mr. Petrellis at the time of our first response that we were continuing to process his request and would provide the additional entries on a rolling basis. Since then, we provided 5 more installments of additional calendar entries, and we did provide all of the entries for the requested 10-month period. The responses and productions are attached in the file. The Office of the Mayor takes very seriously the Prop G calendar requirements and works to ensure that the requisite information regarding dates, times, locations, attendees, and descriptions for the mayor's many meetings are provided. Mr. Petrellis' request encompassed nearly a full year's worth of entries covering hundreds of meetings. In addition to updating the calendar, the Office of the Mayor must review the entries to ensure that any information that is exempt from production, such as attorney-client privileged information or personnel information relating to job interviews, for example, is properly handled and redacted where appropriate. So I think it's clear from I believe it's clear from the file that this is a voluminous amount of information. There are hundreds of entries provided. I would submit that the entries are robust and provide all of the required information. And like I said, we can't just press a button and produce hundreds of entries immediately, because we do have to, aside from just preparing them and generating them for production, we do need to make sure that we're not providing things that are exempt from disclosure for privilege or personnel related privacy issues, et cetera. I mean, there are sometimes sensitive bits of information on that calendar that, although it's required under the Prop G requirement to include the information so that it is logged, those items can't be produced, and that's the exception, not the rule. I mean, the vast, probably 99% of the entries are provided, but we still need to do that review, and it does take time.
Thank you. Members, any questions?
So I have a question for Mr. Heckel, which is that, so you only do that review if you get a request, then? You don't routinely keep a keep the calendar in a state that's ready to be distributed 3 days after?
Well, we keep the information up to date, but we don't do like the review in terms of redacting information that may or may not be sensitive. And that is kind of in flux often, particularly with personnel issues. The standard is that if the mayor is interviewing a few different applicants for a job, the ultimately successful applicant, we would disclose that she had a meeting with that person, but whoever doesn't get the job, of course, we have to, redact that. So that's kind of a moving target. And we kind of have to review that in the moment that it's requested.
And then do you have any policy about, in terms of when you're reviewing these documents, about how frequently you think or how quickly you need to release them? Right, because generally you did release everything, and it's generally like, 1 month apart, 2 months apart, 15 days apart between your various releases of the transcripts. Do you have any policies about how long to wait before releasing documents when you're doing that kind of ongoing review?
I mean, it's not really a policy. It's really just staff time. I mean, the mayor's administrative team has to, keep keep running tabs on all of the mayor's meetings, in person, off-site, on the phone. The mayor's very busy, as you might imagine. So, some days there's 20, 30 entries on there in a given day, making sure that's up to date. And then, we work to make sure we're compliant within that 3-day window. But of course, if information, I'll review the information to make sure I think it's up to the standard of Prop G. And if it isn't, we can add in more information. Because, meetings sometimes come together quickly, and you have to sort of go back and recreate the subject and so on. We want to make sure we satisfy those requirements.
Okay. And then one question for the petitioner. Why do you believe that there's a violation here? The responses were provided on a rolling basis. Where do you see the violation here?
The records were not produced 3 days after the meetings had taken place. They should have had these records ready to be released. They were not released within the 3 business day requirement of the law. And I'm looking at what was released, like, for example, on page 29 of the packet, indeed on every page, there are no redactions. There are no redactions. There's very little information about what topics were discussed. And I see nothing here in looking at the records again about job hiring or who's getting fired or anything really to do with a personnel matter. That information is just missing from the mayor's record. If there's a redaction here, please point it out to me. But to come back to your question, my answer is the records were not produced in a timely manner as required by law, and these records are clearly spelled out in law as to be maintained and released quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anything else, Member Stein? Member Wolf, questions?
Nope, you guys covered it.
Okay, I have 1 or 2 questions. Let's see. First, Mr. Heckel, it looks to me like you believe you produced fully after the period of the rollout, let's call it, correct?
Yeah, we provided all the requested calendar entries now.
And you said there were several installments in this rollout, right?
Yeah, I think 5 installments, kind of 2 months at a time.
Okay. And just from the file that we get, I got the sense that maybe the full production ended up being maybe about 34 text pages, 8.5 by 11. Is that approximately right? Or am I not seeing the full extent of what the eventual production was?
No, it's much larger than that. It's probably a couple of hundred pages. Yeah.
All right. And Mr. Petros, does that seem the number, a couple of hundred pages, does that seem about right in your understanding?
Let me make sure I understand the question. You're asking if I have received hundreds of entries or hundreds of pages
Yes.
Containing the entries.
Yeah. What was you could describe it in terms of quantity, the way you think is appropriate, but what was the full size of the production that you got?
I would say no more than 200 pages.
Okay. And the timing here, from the point in time where you believe you should have received, which is the 3-day point in time, until the end, which I think you said was in March, what was that time span? What was the start date, which is the 3-day date, and then the end date of that rollout period, as you see it, Mr. Petrolis?
I cannot recall when the mayor's office started the rollout of documents to me. But my interpretation of the Sunshine Law, that sentence that I read you, I believe that pertains to, okay, I'm looking at the first page of what was sent in your packet there on page 6 for March 14, 2022. I believe 3 days after that March 14 meeting in 2022, those records should have been made available upon request. Okay? And then for every day thereafter, that 3-day section of the Sunshine Law for Prop G calendars applies. So, yeah, I would make the argument that the records for each day that were not produced within 3 days after I had made my request is a violation here.
My question's a little less than that, which is just your initial request in this situation. What was the date of that? It was back in the fall, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so the response, your understanding is it took from that date until March to fully respond, correct?
Yes, and on page 4 of your packet, there's a copy of my complaint to the Sunshine Task Force, and it shows that my request was made October 22.
Okay,
but
great.
Records were not finally all produced until March 13 this year.
All right. Thank you. That answers my question. No more questions. Thank you to the parties.
Thank you.
We will now deliberate.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Clearly, this is Member Wolf. This is clearly the records are public records, and it's definitely within our jurisdiction.
Yes.
At this point, I don't know if there's any additional points to be made, but to move the item to the task force at this point.
That's a motion?
Is that a motion?
Yeah.
Could I ask if we should maybe add a recommendation into that?
Go ahead.
We do that in some cases.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, just a recommendation of a finding of a delay violation, 67.21.
Okay. It's fine with me. So move to find that the records are public, they're within the task force jurisdiction. Record is complete enough for to be forwarded to the task force, and a recommendation to find a violation of 6721 for timeliness. Is there a particular subject?
Actually, I think I misspoke. I think it should be 67.29.5. Is that the red provision? Yeah.
A.
29.5A. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Replace that then, please.
Okay. I'll second that motion.
Do we want to open this up for public comment?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's move to public comment on that.
Okay. Mr. Young, is there anybody in the queue for public comment?
Okay, just checking. If you'd like to make public comment at this time, you can raise your hand by pressing *3, or otherwise indicating through the application that you'd like to make public comment. I'll give everyone a moment to let me know. Okay, I do not see any indications for public comment at this time.
All right, let's have a vote.
Member Wolf?
Aye.
Member Wolf, aye. Chair Schmidt?
Aye.
Chair Schmidt, aye. Member Stein?
Aye.
Member Stein, aye. Moved by Member Wolf, seconded by Chair Schmidt to find that the records are public, there is jurisdiction, and to forward that matter to the task force with a recommendation for a violation of 67.29-5A as an apple for violation of timeliness.
Cheryl, I'd just like to suggest that you adjust the title for this specific item to match that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
You may want to adjust the complaint title to match this violation.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, and I think the record should be fixed also, so the correct documents are at the top of the record.
Okay. We ready for the next item?
Yes, please.
Item number 6, file number 23013A. Complaint filed by Chris Ward Klein against the Department of Public Health for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6721, 6724BO, and 6725 by failing to respond to a request for public records in a timely and or complete manner.
All right, the agenda has 5 separate entries, all, I guess, with the same case number on them, and they all involve Mr. Klein. My first question is Mr. Klein present here today? There we go. All right, and we have looks like 5 different agencies, and so we'll go through these one by one. It's a little bit unusual in that it was a single, I guess, request that was sent out, it's my understanding, and it's a single complaint, but we're going to be addressing the different agencies that are brought in one at a time, and that's going to be first, it looks like the Department of Public Health, then the sheriff, the mayor, police, emergency management, and SFPD. So the first thing is we'll hear from you, Mr. Klein, first. I may not need you to describe your full case each time, but with the subsequent cases, I'll ask you to explain if there's something different about your case with regard to that agency specifically when you speak. But
Chair,
yes,
just a point of order. How are we going to proceed with this? So I hear you want to hear the story once, which is fine. But are we going to then deliberate on each individual one?
It looks like
How are we going to proceed here?
it's a good question. The agenda, which I approved, although it did look different when I approved it, and I'm not quite sure if I've seen this before, but it has these as 5 single line items. So I'm guessing that because we and I did that and sent this forward with 5 items, that we probably have to have 5 different procedures and then 5 different opportunities for public comment. The only thing I thought we might circumscribe is just that we don't need to hear the full case 5 times if it's sort of the same case that's just brought against different agencies. But I'm open to suggestions as to other ways of running this thing.
Could I make a suggestion, if possible?
Hold on, Mr. Klein. I will ask for a suggestion, but Member Wolf, please.
Yeah, so I'm a little concerned by this because I'm wondering how it got brought into us in the first place, whether it was a singular complaint naming multiple parties. And if it was, then, we have in the past have had a practice of it just being one file and all the parties appear. Or it can be broken out the way it is, but with each file having its own file number. I've never seen this before.
Absolutely.
Member Wolf,
Yeah.
This is Victor Young. I am the one who did the intake on this file.
Okay.
And upon my initial review, it was one complaint form listing all 5 departments. However, when I reviewed them, there was a different letter for each department. So each one is slightly different. But it was one complaint form listing all the departments.
Okay, so then the question then would have, I think we would have to ask the petitioner here is if there is actually a difference between the requests for each of the agencies. Now, we could not necessarily do this. We can't necessarily, kind of combine them because usually we do that for multiple complaints to the same parties, not different parties. But I'm not sure. The concern I have is if we're only going to hear testimony one time for all of these, if there is any difference between A through E, then we're going to have to hear testimony again. And unless we're, folks are, the 3 of us are, well prepared enough to know the differences, to ask questions, we may not pick up on the nuances that Mr. Klein here, the petitioner, is interested in presenting.
I was going to
Member Stein.
Yeah, it's hard for me to imagine doing these all together because there were very different responses from different parties. But the petitioner also suggested in the packet that they just take 8 minutes, I believe it was, and address all of the complaints, like have a little bit of extra time to address all the different, letters here. So I don't know, I don't know if that was something that we can do.
I will now hear from Mr. Klein, and including whether that's something that you wish to do.
So I just wanted to suggest before I start the 3 minutes.
Is this going to be timed?
No.
Okay.
So this is just a suggestion, and you're correct. So this all does come together, and the mayor is kind of the point person. She's the leader of the city, the county. And I think all this can be resolved if you would just respectfully listen to my first testimony, and I think it will all come together, and you'll understand how these 5 agencies work together, and there's overlap. Like there's overlap with the sheriff's department within public health, and I got kind of thrown into this because I'm an investigator and I used to interview people. So what I would suggest, and again, I'll leave this up to the committee and the chair. I would like to bridge it together if possible. And I would also like to, with new information just gathered today, to present on public health, kind of briefly go over everything else with the other agencies involved, because the people with the public records, and I'm just finding this out today, is they're not aware of the information that I'm asking them to release. This is a little bit higher. It's called situational awareness. So the individuals from each department are saying, we don't have this, we don't have this. I'm saying, yes, you do, yes, you do. And with my background and experience, I understand where it is and where it's kept. But I don't think in the essence of time, it would be wise to go over every single one when they are all connected. The people that are saying, we only have emails or we don't have this, they don't understand the records that I'm looking for.
Are you prepared to give us in this 8-minute number? I'm interested in that, to give us the case that you have involving all the agencies in that 8 minutes. And so then we do want to give all the respondents an opportunity to respond. But could you present all 5, let's say, of the agencies in 8 minutes, based on your understanding of the sameness or interrelatedness of them?
That 8 minutes was based on the evidence that I presented. I actually thought I was going to be coming here to do a presentation to cover every single piece of evidence. That was already presented. I can probably keep it between 3 and 5 minutes and cover each department. And with that, as you deliberate, I think it would be best today if we could, one, I think it's already on the agenda, decide if it's public records. But 2, if we could put this on a calendar for 30 days or 45 days, saying that we now know that this is public records, because again, the information I got today is going to make sense why I'm asking for that, because I think the people here and people online were not aware of the technical whereabouts of where this evidence lies, and then no fault of their own. But I can wrap it up in 3 to 5 minutes, and I'll explain it as I present it,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Okay, that's what we're going to do then. I'll give the members 2 options, but I think we'll give you 5 minutes, as you request, to tell us about your case, and then we will either hear from all the respondents, 3 minutes each, or we'll hear from one respondent at a time, and then figure out what we want to do with that one, and then move to the next respondent, with always the opportunity to go back to Mr. Klein. Those are the 2 ways I can see that reasonably we might do this. Members, any thought?
Yeah, I have some additional thoughts. I think that I think the way you're playing this is the right way to go. The question is when it comes time to make a decision, we could make a vote, just wait until the end and then do one motion and just listing every single one of them together. If the outcome of what our charge is the same for all of them.
Mhm.
If not, then we're going to have to do each one independently.
Okay.
All right, let's I'm leaning towards hearing from all the parties, and it may not be that lengthy, and we can always go back to the parties with questions.
Okay.
members. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay. However we want to proceed in that way. I'm just more concerned about how we
Sure.
deliberate and make decisions. Are we going to make one vote of all of them, or are we going to do, 5 individual votes?
Absolutely. Yeah. Certainly, it's not clear yet how we're going to do that. I agree with you.
I do have a mission, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'm a volunteer with the Auxiliary Communication Services, which is under the Department of Emergency Management. After reading through the file here, I don't have any connection to any of this information. I believe I can continue to provide an unbiased presentation here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We'll start with up to 5 minutes from the petitioner. And
This is Mr. Young. Can I suggest that we read the remaining items?
oh, yes. Let's go ahead and do that, Cheryl, and then we will hear from Mr. Klein first.
Shall I read item 6 over again?
No.
Item number 7, file number 23013, B as in boy, complaint filed by Chris Ward Klein against the Office of the Sheriff for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6721, 6724BO, and 6725 by failing to respond to a request for public records in a timely and or complete manner. Item number 8, file number 23013C, complaint filed by Chris Ward Klein against the Mayor's Office for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6721, 6724BO, and 6725 by failing to respond to a request for public records in a timely and or complete manner. Item number 9, file number 23013D, complaint filed by Chris Ward Klein against the Department of Emergency Management for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6721, 6724BO, and 6725 by failing to respond to a request for public records in a timely and or complete manner. Item number 10, file number 23013, E as in Edward, complaint filed by Chris Ward Klein against the San Francisco Police Department for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6721, 6724BO, and 6725 by failing to respond to a request for public records in a timely and or complete manner.
Right. Thank you. And so when Cheryl's ready, we'll be able to start and hear from Mr. Klein.
Are we giving him 8 minutes or 5?
We are going to let's finish up in 5.
5,
I think that should work.
Are you ready, sir?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Sunshine Ordinance Task Force. I wanted to talk about the issues and concerns with how I got here today. And back in 2015, I was a corporate investigator for a retailer, and I have a ton of experience with federal law enforcement, state law enforcement, and county and state. And I still maintain that relationship, and I've worked with the Transportation Security Administration, amongst other federal agencies that use frequency, sound waves, and communication. And back in 2015, I was very successful at what I was doing. In fact, in June of that year, and 6 months into the year, I already reached my goals for apprehensions, external, internal, organized retail crime. And then everything kind of fell apart. And I didn't know what was happening. And what I learned years later was that people started finding out that I was gay. So to make things really more difficult, I just went on this path. And I said, well, let me just use my experience to piece this together. So what I found out is that within the city and county of San Francisco, agencies use the same type of communication within day-to-day work. It's called situational awareness. They use surveys like Survey Gizmo, SurveyMonkey, and MailChimp. And people that need mental health assistance, they get a program put on their phone or their home phone or their cell phone to help them guide them to the hospital to get treatment. And if you ever walked on the street and you saw someone screaming to themselves, that's that program that's actually using voice technology to talk to that person's phone or surrounding items, Internet of Things, Internet of all things, Internet of medical things, to get that person treated. And what I found out that someone decided to call public health and put me on HIV surveillance, meaning someone thought I had HIV, which is not the case. So I was fighting this, trying to get information from House representatives, senators. So back in 2021, I first started reaching out to Kaiser, who was my primary care. And then I started reaching out to the county agencies. So public health, I reached out to, and over they said, no, there's nothing here. And then just recently, I came across 308 Section D, which is the Public Health Service Act, and also California Health and Safety Code Sections 12.1.025, which state that public health records relating to acquired immune deficiency syndrome containing personally identifying information that were developed or acquired by state or local public health agencies shall be confidential and shall not be disclosed, except as otherwise provided by law for public health purposes or pursuant to a written authorization by the person who is the subject or the record, or by his or her guardian, a conservator. I have that request. I was going to turn that over to public health today, which they were saying all along that isn't possible. Now we know that that's possible. Also in 2019, because I was going through all this, I started making public comments because I have an oath to speak up for other people. I'm a former Marine, American Legion member, a Marine Corps League. My oath is to speak up. And the mayor's office wasn't favorable to what I was saying. So she asked some of these departments to put me on surveillance, different types of surveillance. There's the sheriff utilizes it, SFPD utilizes it, and the Department of Emergency Management, they maintain and they actually keep the records. It's called radio frequencies. It's all done by this, which you can all get a copy of. It's done by each department. It's all color coded. So there's someone in a computer watching all these computer signals, and they are all stored in the Department of Emergency Management. So all these requests are basically for the same information. It's like, give me the information I'm looking for. I want to be successful in my community, but being on surveillance in these programs makes it very difficult. Momentive, which is SurveyMonkey, if you've read the evidence, if you're on that program, it can cause death, mental impairment, or serious personal injury. So that's what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. The first respondent we'd like to hear from is the Department of Public Health. Do we have a representative here? Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yes.
She also gets 5 minutes.
Pardon?
Speaker will also get 5 minutes.
This is a 3-minute maximum.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I have just a quick question before they begin.
Yes, please.
Has all of the now I don't see it in the record unless I missed it. I don't see a completed form as to whether they any of the respondents have pleaded no contest, non-compliance, or are challenging the complaint. Do we have...
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that either.
That would certainly help us.
I did see that they all, maybe not all of them, but at least several of them did not admit. They several said they have no records.
Right. Yeah.
Which is what we'll probably either see or find here. It didn't seem like there were going to be admissions.
Okay.
Here.
That's fine. We'll take up. It's more of an administrative issue at this point. We'll take it up at some other time. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. We can hear next from, if you could tell us your name from the.
Yes, good evening. Good evening, Chair Schmidt and Member Wolf and Member Stein. Oh,
Just your name.
okay. Natalie Poyman. I'm the acting custodian of record for the Department of Public Health.
Okay. 3 minutes, Chair Schmidt.
Yeah, 3 minutes.
All right, you ready, ma'am?
Yep. Hi there. It's good to be with you all this evening. Just a few things on this request. Mr. Klein emails the Department of Public Health staff on a weekly basis. We've received hundreds of emails within the past several months. Since DPH provided its written response to this complaint on February 22nd, Mr. Klein has sent us more than 50 emails. Mr. Klein believes that these are public record requests. However, they are not in fact public records. They are for his own medical or epidemiological records. Multiple times, we have requested Mr. Klein in writing how to request copies of his own medical records. These records are protected by HIPAA. We cannot obtain them for him. We have repeatedly provided him with the avenues for doing so himself. Regarding the HIV epidemiological record that Mr. Klein believes DPH has, this again is not a public record. HIV cases in San Francisco are logged into an enhanced HIV/AIDS reporting system, or EHARS, which is a system managed and maintained by CDC. In the state of California, HIV data is regulated by the Health and Safety Code 121025. Theoretically, an individual can request their own requests from the California Department of Public Health if they provide a written authorization for the disclosure by completing the relevant forms found on CDBH's website, which we've provided. DPH cannot, under state law, confirm an individual's identity in order to respond to a request for their own HIV epidemiological record. Therefore, DPH cannot investigate Mr. Klein's claim that we have such records pertaining to him. Again, we reiterate that the above referenced records are not public records, and DPH staff cannot be expected to fulfill these requests with any response other than we have no public records. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members, should we continue with the plan to hear next from the sheriff's office, or is there anything you want to discuss at this point?
Hey, Mr. Chair, I'm wondering if we might lend ourselves a little freedom that if a question comes up, after each testimony, we can ask it. Otherwise, call them back later.
Absolutely, yes. Do you have a question or two at this time?
Not at this time.
Okay. Let's hear from the sheriff's office. Do we have a representative here? And if you could tell us your name. And thank you, Ms. Poyman.
Good evening, Chair Schmidt, Member Stein, and Wolf. My name is Allison Lambert, and I am a legal assistant with the Sheriff's Office. I work directly under the supervision and direction of the Custodian of Records. I do handle every single public records request that comes in to the Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office received a total of 4 public records requests from Mr. Klein from the period of July 21st, 2021 through December 13th, 2022. The first 3 of Mr. Klein's requests were responded to promptly. We produced 1 record, a PrEP certification, and the rest of these 3 requests had no responsive records. Unfortunately, due to a clerical calendaring error on my end, I was not able to respond to Mr. Klein's last request that we received December 13th, 2022, in part because I was on medical leave and my entire house had COVID. So I asked that I am able to work with Mr. Klein so that we can locate and find if there are any records responsive to that 4th request. Additionally, Mr. Klein has submitted 2 additional PRAs on March 8th and March 13th, 2023. We were able to close the March 8th request today because Sheriff's Office has no responsive records. And the March 13th request is pending and still being processed. Throughout Mr. Klein's requests, he alleges that the Sheriff's Office is illegally surveilling him. Each time the Sheriff's Office receives a records request from Mr. Klein, the records units checks our records to see if Mr. Klein was ever in the Sheriff's custody, also known as being booked into San Francisco jail. For each of these requests, the records unit confirmed that Mr. Klein had never been in custody, and the reason for checking if he had been in custody is that is the only time that surveillance or electronic monitoring of a person by the Sheriff's Office occurs. They need to be booked into jail. Additionally, regarding any recordings of any phone calls by the sheriff, that only occurs when a person is booked into jail and the recordings are made while the person is in jail, while they're making or receiving calls while they're in custody. Because Mr. Klein has never been booked into jail, no records exist regarding surveillance by the Sheriff's Office. I can discuss in further detail my initial response was, detailing each of the 4 records requests, but I'm complete at this time with my statement.
Thank you. That's
I've-
all
I have
at
a
this
question.
time. Oh, yeah, we have a question from Member Wolf.
Yes, I'm just curious. Ms. Lambert, in the case of your absence, is there any protocol to assign or designate someone else in your stead?
Yes, unfortunately, my coworker, who has the same classification as me, also recently left on an extended medical leave as well. We receive close to 75 to 100 requests per month, and we process these in the order they're received as best as we can.
So in the case that both of you are absent,
We hope that never
what is
happens.
the sheriff's protocol then?
It goes to the custodian of records to determine who within our unit is able to respond.
And did that happen?
It came back to me, and unfortunately with the COVID fog, and that was just from December, the complaint was filed before I was able to respond.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Oh, and by the way, who is the custodian of records?
Custodian of records is Lieutenant Felicia Jameson. She's not available to appear tonight, and I do work under her direction and supervision.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
all right. If the members are amenable, we can now hear from the representative of the mayor's office on I'll call it the third part of this matter.
You ready?
Yep.
Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Chair Schmidt, members of the Complaint Committee, Hank Heckel, Compliance Officer in Mayor Breed's office, here to respond to Mr. Ward Klein's complaint. So I don't have much to add beyond what some of the other departments have responded already. I would say that the mayor's office's posture in this case is that we don't believe we've actually been the direct recipient of any requests from Mr. Ward Klein. We've received, we were made aware through the course of these complaints that these individual departments, sheriff and DPH and others have received the request over a period of months relating to these complaints. We've tried to provide some assistance in their efforts to respond, but the correspondence we've received from Mr. Ward Klein, to my understanding, what we were just CC'd on various requests to the individual departments. If you look in the file that Mr. Ward Klein submitted, all of the materials in our file are just requests to the other departments. In any case, even if the mayor's office were a recipient of any of these requests, the office of the mayor does not have the type of information that Mr. Ward Klein is seeking from the other departments. We don't have, health records, any of the types of records concerning the apps that he had mentioned, since the mayor's office doesn't administer any of those related programs. So. Happy to answer any questions, but we would submit that the office of the mayor was not a recipient of these requests, And even if we were, we had nothing to produce, so there was no violation.
Thank you. All right, emergency management is next. We have a representative of the Department of Emergency Management.
Hi there. Can you hear me? Victor Lim from DEM.
There we go. We have someone by remote, appearing remotely. There we go. When Cheryl's ready, we'll hear from you. Up to 3 minutes.
Just a second.
Should I state my name and title first?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure. Victor Lim, External Affairs Manager, and also one of the custodian records of the San Francisco Department of Emergency Management.
Go ahead with your statement.
Thank you. So for DEM, Department of Emergency Management, we received a total of 2 requests from Mr. Klein. And the complaint is that we did not respond in a timely or in complete manner. DEM does deny that allegation. DEM has responded to Mr. Klein's request in both a timely and a complete manner. And as stated in our letter to the SOTF here, on Sunday afternoon, September the 4th, 2022, at 12:24 p.m., Mr. Klein submitted his first request via email to DEM's Division of Emergency Communications Public Records Team. So that's our 911 Dispatch Public Records Team. And on Tuesday morning, September the 6th, 2022, at 6:43 a.m., the DEM dispatch staff timestamped Mr. Klein's request form and began processing his request. And then on Wednesday, September the 7th of the same year, DEC's Public Records Team issued a printed written response to Mr. Klein. And this is in response to his request of having a written response. DEM informed Mr. Klein that DEM does not maintain the records he requested and suggested he separately submit a public records request to the San Francisco Police Department for potential records. DEM public records staff telephoned Mr. Klein to inform him he could pick up the printed written response at DEM's office located at 1011 Turk Street. Mr. Klein picked up the printed response in the same week. Then for his second request, it came in on Wednesday afternoon, October 19th of last year at 12:02 p.m. He faxed it in. Mr. Klein submitted a new public records request via fax to DEM's DEC Public Records Team. On the same day at 12:18 p.m., DEM staff stamped the form and began processing Mr. Klein's second request. On Tuesday, October the 25th of last year, the Public Records Team issued a printed written response to Mr. Klein. DEM informed Mr. Klein that DEM does not maintain the records he requested and suggested he separately submit a public records request to the San Francisco Sheriff's Office for potential records. And DEM public records staff again telephoned Mr. Klein to inform him to pick up the printed written response at DEM's office at 1011 Turk Street. And Mr. Klein picked up the printed response in the same week. And with the above recitations of facts demonstrates that Mr. Klein has no basis for his complaint against DEM, and hence we respectfully ask that the task force consider dismissing Mr. Klein's complaint against DEM. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lim.
Thank you.
Okay. And we have one more. Let's hear from the police department. And we do have a representative. Could you state your name?
William Toomey, Lieutenant with the San Francisco Police Department.
Okay, thank you. And when Cheryl's ready, let's.
You ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you could tell us about your response.
So the San Francisco Police Department does have to take responsibility for the fact that we received a CC'd email regarding a request for information from the complainant. There was a clerical error in which a letter was sent requesting for additional time, as we wanted to look into what the request was because there was some verbiage that we weren't necessarily sure about. The clerical error occurred in that we actually got a response back from our technology division letting us know that we did not have the information. But unfortunately, the extension letter was sent out and not the actual response. We only found that error took place when the complaint came from the complainant via the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force. We received that complaint that day, started the investigation into the complaint, and realized that we had sent the wrong letter, and immediately sent the letter that we had on file and had initially wished to send to the complainant. To that end, when we sent the letter that we did send, was that we did not understand specifically what he was asking for, and there were no records that were clearly, the verbiage we used was, there was no identifying documents, but the request has to be significantly clear and defined. We weren't exactly sure what he was asking for, and we wanted to make sure if we did have them, we could give them to him. We received no response back from him after sending the correct letter to him. So that's all that the police department has. If there's any questions, please let me know if we can answer them for you.
Yeah, we may have questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, members, it looks like, the case is it appears that all of the departments have informed the petitioner that they have no records to produce. That's a commonality here. But I would say to the members, there have been some questions, but I'll open it up to any questions you have for any of the parties. So this will be the question period of our hearing.
I have a question.
Yes, Member Wolf.
For Mr. Klein, petitioner. And I'm sorry, is it Mr. Ward Klein or just Mr. Klein?
It's Chris Ward Klein.
Chris Ward Klein, okay. You mentioned there are documents or records or information that each of the respondents may or may not have knowledge about, and that it would become clear to us after hearing all this what that might be. Can you clarify with some ample detail as to what it is that they wouldn't know about?
So the app One System, which was submitted as evidence, is for all homeless people. It's also put on the facilities and the staff. So it's situational awareness. You get training to do A, B, C, and D. Just like a surgeon, you have situational awareness. You're not going to go A, B, F. So this situational awareness is a computer program. It's voice technology where the software is communicating to you to guide you. Just like a homeless person that's out there yelling, this is much slower at a lower frequency. So yes, most people are not aware of this. I became aware of it when I was in the military because of, military technology, but that has since rolled down. And if you look at the evidence, it spells it out with, now hear this, how every corporation, McDonald's, Nordstrom, they use this technology. Like when I used to work at Nordstrom, and we used to get phone calls all the time. My wife bought too many shoes, and it was our technology telling that person, be it a man or a woman, don't just buy the size 7, take 3 or 4 home. You may like more than one. We had to turn it off because so many people were complaining. So this is technology that's used everywhere. Google uses it, Microsoft. It's everywhere around us. So obviously, this is why I try to email constantly to the mayor. It's like, this is something that we probably don't want everyone to know about. And that's why I sent all these emails over and over, because I know what it is. I know the technology there, and it's all recorded in the Department of Emergency Management.
What is the name? What is the name of the product that you?
Well, there's multiple programs. So One System is primarily used within San Francisco, and if you look at health or homelessness, supportive housing. They list about 60 different agencies, public health, Department of Emergency Management, but they don't list everyone because the same thing. They don't want everyone to assume that this is what's happening. So the sheriff uses it on the sheriff's department. So when they go make a stop, they know what situational awareness is. So if something goes bad, and this is why you get like a $35 million settlement when somebody gets shot, because they go in and they look at the IT, this is what happened. So they settle because they don't want this to come out to public. It's public records. But the mayor, the sheriff, the police department are saying in public health, no, this doesn't exist. But it does.
Well, have you provided evidence that it exists?
And my evidence that I presented, it spells it out, I think, pretty clearly. It goes through how it came about, how it was designed. There's Felton Institute, which is here in San Francisco. It used to be a city and county of suicide hotline that merged together, but there's still sheriff's full-time officers that work at Felton Institute. So they use these programs as well on mental health, homelessness. So there's different programs, but the main one is one system. The sheriff has different ones, obviously, because they use Sentinel for their probation parole. And the police department, they use other technology to get into the phones, which they don't want. All this, anything that they use makes noise. So if you're typing on a computer, it makes noise. If it makes noise, it's recorded. And the way the system is set up, it's all recorded at the Department of Emergency Management. And it's basically the radar around us. WSR 57, but now that's 88 Delta, is over the United States. It's broken down to the state, then the county. So we all have a megahertz channel. So if you have a megahertz channel, Uber, Twitter, anything that they do that makes noise is recorded with our megahertz channel, and it would be stored there. Again, I did my best to not get here because I knew of the complexity and the fight that probably would happen. And that's why I said I would like, with public health, I clearly read the statute. It says, with my consent, those HIV records and the surveillance is public record. And I have the form that I was going to hand over to public health. And the person that I need to submit it to is Susan Phillip. I got that information today.
Is that form in the record, in our record here?
That is not. That was the information I said that I just became aware of today.
Right. I think we want a copy of a blank form, if you can provide it, to be put into the record.
I have a blank copy, and I would like to submit a copy to public health since that person is here.
Okay. I've got just a couple of other questions. Can you, I don't know, maybe not, can you point us to the information? Did you provide us with any information that shows that you've been exposed in our record here today? I didn't quite see any in the record.
If I can go grab my documents, but in the public health section, there's mandatory reporting requirements. It's 4 pages. It goes from if you had food poisoning, if you had HIV, if you had a bloodborne pathogen, that it is required to have that reported to public health. And here was my concern is one or more of those items was me. And I've been requesting all these public documents, and I submitted all this. This is within your records. They kept saying, you have no record, no record, no record. I have records that have their address on it. I'm a gay man. I've been vaccinated. There's records. But we could resolve this if we could just, and I got movement today, to just get with Susan Phillip, and I think public health and the sheriff said this as well, and that's, I would like to work with them. I really would, because of the explosiveness of this information, to hopefully a lot quicker than it was. But I want to work with these agencies. I want to be a healthy member of the society, contributing, working, doing whatever it may be. But for some reason, we went left and right. But I could provide, I do have that documentation. It's in the public health section, where it's basically 4 pages of any illness or injury or illnesses that have to be reported to the county public health.
Sure. I get that. We all kind of went through it too with COVID in a lot of ways.
Correct.
Can you explain which technology was used for you for surveillance?
Sure. So primarily, so HIV surveillance, and I'll reiterate this, is it's not just the document that says that you have HIV. There's a hotline that if you're a doctor and you suspect somebody of having HIV, they can call this number over at San Francisco General, and they put you on surveillance, and they put a program on you to get tested, or, you know, to go through the process, you know, be a relationship, be healthy, get a job. And in San Francisco, that's important because federal law, if you go somewhere else with HIV, you may not get a job. So here, they use that, and I didn't want to share this because of the what we're discussing, but they use that technology to help people with HIV get jobs. So primarily, it started out with HIV surveillance, and I couldn't figure out, I was like, what is going on here? Because I keep going into roadblock after roadblock, and I'm like, at work, I'm doing everything perfect, but when I go home, everything is like a shambles.
Would you be comfortable in explaining maybe what one roadblock might be?
Well, relationship after relationship. It was almost like, well, it was. They wanted me to be in a relationship with somebody that had HIV. Everybody.
How did that present itself?
So I'm a
only if you're comfortable. I'm not. You know.
No, I'm fine with it. And so I'd go out. I was trying to be in a relationship, and you get to the be intimate part, and part of this program is supposed to tell, you know, hey, I'm HIV positive. Sometimes that wouldn't necessarily happen.
Lord Natalie is sitting.
Is that for me? Or did somebody just hit unmute? So anyways,
background noise, that's all.
So that would happen over and over and over. And I said, well, wait a minute. I know I'm not HIV positive. I've been tested. Why are all these people telling me that they're HIV positive? And so I started piecing the dots together and figuring out, well, they can guide you to healthy situations, and they can guide you to negative situations. And over and over.
So this was done without your knowledge.
Absolutely, initially, until I started piecing it together.
Okay, but it's, even after you were piecing it together and it was still happening, it was still unknown to you how these people got your information to contact you, or to at least know some of your or your alleged health background.
Yeah. So basically, as public health is collecting information, be put on one of these programs, they just need your phone number, your email, and they can send it to your phone or to your home. Okay. And it's supposed to be very protected, like public health said. It's confidential, but it's not classified.
Are you explaining, like in this particular scenario you presented, are you explaining like the city is trying to be somewhat of a dating service by matching people up who are have similar health conditions?
I think, yes, I think that they want people, if you have HIV, that maybe they think that you should be with somebody with HIV. They help you get a job. With me, I think that they realize that they made a mistake by putting me on HIV surveillance. And that's what I want is, they're saying that they can't even get into the system, which is not true. And the statute clearly states what I already read. I don't want to keep repeating myself.
Okay. Okay, appreciate it. I have Mr. Chair, I just have one question for all of the respondents. Do any of your agencies or departments possess and or use the technology the petitioner is referring to? And I'll just add that I understand that if you're under any sort of security restriction or non-disclosure agreement, just to please state that. I'd like a response from each of the respondents.
Yeah, just one, whatever order you wish.
The San Francisco Police Department, no.
Thank you.
Could we ask, I'm sorry, can we just ask you to say which technology you believe you were asked about?
Certainly.
And what you're saying no to?
Certainly. The San Francisco Police Department believes that the inquiry is to some type of surveillance that monitors and affects the judgment of an individual and forcing them to do things that they might necessarily not want to do. And to that end, we do not.
Public health.
The San Francisco Department of Public Health also does not have any type of monitoring of direct specific individual software that the requester mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff's Office.
Yes. Mr. Ward Klein mentioned Sentinel. Sentinel is used by the Sheriff's Office to do electronic monitoring for people who have been placed into jail. So it does not apply to Mr. Ward Klein.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, and Mayor's Office.
Yes, the Office of the Mayor does not use any type of surveillance system on anyone.
Okay. And Mr. Lim from Emergency Management.
Yes, the San Francisco Department of Emergency Management does not use any surveillance technology on anyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Member Stein, any questions at this time?
No.
Okay. I have just a few questions, hopefully quick. Mr. Klein, you understood from the Department of Public Health's standpoint that there are special procedures by which only you could request your own health records, correct? The records that would be maintained about you at Public Health, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And I'd like to present a blank request form that is for protected health information. I also have one that's filled out. Again, I got this information today.
Yeah.
To send this to Susan Phillip, which is at 25 Van Ness Public Health, to release my HIV status, STI, sexual transmitted infection or disease status, and the surveillance that we were just talking about. So I'd like to give this over to Public Health at this point, if she would like to.
And in any of those records, they would never just, I'm sure you already know this, they would never go through the task force where anyone here is going to look at them. And it's something where I'm not even sure, we may, well, whatever the definition of public records is, I'm not even sure if those would be, even though they're held in a public building, in public files of a kind, I'm not sure if they come within the classification of public records. I don't know if it's something that we would really even have jurisdiction over. But we're not deciding that today. I just want you to know that that's a separate process.
And I understand that as well. That is not my expertise. However, the one system has been listed on city pages, SF.gov, that public health does utilize one system. And not to argue, it's just, again, I think that this is at the higher senior levels that they're using the one system, even on their staff. Yeah. So I'm not trying, I want to work with the city. I want to work with the county. I do not want to argue with people in public records trying to get me the information.
My next question is this. The sheriff's office says that they don't have any documents related to you because you were never in custody, and so there's no reason they'd have any documents about you. Do you have any reason to disbelieve what they've said here today?
There's legal surveillance and there's illegal surveillance, and both would be public record.
You think that they have something that's illegal? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know if I would use it's, to me, most people would say it's illegal. You don't have any right. But for example, during the course of my interviewing investigative career, I interviewed plenty of people on parole, probation, and I put people in prison. I put people in jail. When I interviewed those people, those interviews were recorded because that person was on surveillance, and those notes were recorded, and that requested those records. So if I interviewed somebody that was on probation or parole, my voice, my information was recorded. There's other reasons, but we would like to maybe work with the sheriff's department to reach an agreement. If it is happening, maybe stop it. Let's see what happened, transpired. Let's not do it again. Let's move forward. But does that make sense?
Well, what do you think we can do here today? I mean, you can come up with an agreement with the sheriff, but we're told by the sheriff's office that there's no records. And I don't know if we can really go much further than that. It seems like they also have a rationale, which is the reason, why they don't have any records on you, because you were never in their custody. And so you're guessing correctly that they might have records because of circumstances, but you don't have anything else to counter what they've said here today, correct?
That's incorrect. So first, to answer your point, what I like, the purpose of this committee, is my understanding, is to guide this to a resolution before we go to court. And, in 1975, the church committee said the same thing. This technology was around in 1975 and decades before, is if a dictator would use this, it would cause tyranny on his people. You could do whatever you want. You could have a credit card that you never had to pay off. But so I would like a ruling if it's public record, and then we can move forward to a full hearing. The evidence that I do have is when you use this technology, it leaves a bot, B-O-T, on your phone. There's software that is left on the phone. So I have 3 phones with all these bots, these phone numbers, emails coming in that clearly point right back to the said agencies. So I didn't present everything because I thought it wouldn't get to that. And I couldn't present everything just in case we needed to go to a court.
Sure,
I needed
sure.
to.
Yeah. And
However, I do have evidence.
We don't send anything to courts.
Yeah. So
that's a separate process, just so you know that.
No, and that's, if I presented everything,
Okay.
then they would have knowledge of what I had already, so I couldn't present everything.
I think that's responsive to my question on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I have no further questions for the parties. If the members don't have any further questions, again, we don't make any decisions here today. This is a committee hearing, and yet we do possibly make a determination about whether to submit this for a full task force hearing where decisions could be made. Members, this is the part, I believe, where we figure out what to do next.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I think what I'm struggling with is, while I hear what the petitioner is explaining, I'm not quite finding the kind of the evidence of it, like the actual technology, so that if the departments and agencies are refuting existence of these technologies, and or if they do exist, that they are or are not being used in the fashion that Chris Ward Klein is explaining how it's being used. It makes it a little difficult, I think, for the task force. I'm just trying to make sure we have enough information so that the task force has enough information. It's our job here is to try to do as much discovery as possible to be able to have a complete enough file and information, so we're not, going on for hours on a fishing expedition at the task force level, and we're limited. We don't have any investigative or services. It's just us here in the room and what's presented to us. So I'm just a little concerned about that. I'm not saying I'm compelled to move it to the task force, but without, kind of a example or documentation about the surveillance technology that is being explained, or demonstration of it. Plus, I think it was explained, part of it, in how this particular information, whether it exists or not, would still be public. I mean, I think we need to go through that too. I also got to ask, in the description, in the agenda, it speaks of 6724 B and O. There is no O. It only goes up to, I think, I.
I'll guess it's supposed to be a C, maybe. I don't know.
That's true. Also, it mentions 67.25 IDRs, but I mean, I'm actually, from case to case, it's not clear to me always which request is the request that's being referred to, but none of them appear to be IDRs. So I don't know why 67.25 is in there either. But that is, none of them appear to be immediate disclosure requests.
Right. Well, let's look at the complainant's intake form.
Well, I'm just saying, of the requests that I read,
yeah,
the requests that appeared in the file, none were IDRs.
Okay.
Well, I at least, we have, the mayor's office says there's nothing there. Sheriffs say there's nothing there. Police department says there's nothing there. Department of Emergency Management says there's nothing there. The public health is one where, yeah, they might have records, but that's a that's a very that's a different ballgame because he does know that he's got to follow a process. That's the process that it's in place to protect him. And so that's something that, I still don't know if that would be even called public records myself, but we don't have to decide that. I think I agree with you, Member Wolf, that I think we do just send this on. I'm not sure what else we can do here. There has been discussion about software programs, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know if I'm seeing how it really connects in to what our limited jurisdiction really is.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we, should just, determine whether it's, whether public records and within our jurisdiction, and let the rest of the discovery come at the task force level. I just also want to note on page 116, that would be PDF page 12 of 230. That's the original intake form. It does state 6725 in there, and it does state 6724O. So I'm not clear what the petitioner is referring to.
Well, I also just want to say, like, when this goes forward, I think it really needs to be clear what requests we're referring to, because some of the agencies received multiple requests. It doesn't seem clear to them which ones are being referred to. If for the different cases, there are different requests that are mentioned, and they're asking for somewhat different things. Some are asking for health data, some are asking for surveillance data. It's not, I ideally for each of these, allegations against each agency, I would want to know what specific request are we referring to.
Whose burden is that?
I think it's in the petitioner's interest to make that very clear. And obviously it's difficult for the respondents to give targeted responses if they're not sure which request they're defending, or which response they're defending to a particular request.
Okay. Should we make that part of a motion?
Well, I just want to suggest it. I don't know. I mean, yeah, we can, I guess.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we find the records public at this point, that it's within our jurisdiction, and that the petitioner shall provide some clarity as to which request, or to separate, I guess, kind of separate the requests to each of the named respondents. Does that sound right, Member Stein?
Well, my only problem with it is that I'm not sure all of the records that are being requested are public. I don't have a problem with the last piece, but
I understand.
I mean, I would say with public health that I would even venture to say we make a recommendation that the task force find no violation, because these are all exempt. I can't see how these are not exempt, and they can't produce them. I mean, they're legally required to not produce them as public records in response to a public records request. So
and they seem to be exempt under CPRA 6254C even. Medical files. But then there's also HIPAA and other reasons why they're exempt.
But we don't have to make a recommendation on that. I just think that's one alternative way.
No, but the petitioner did present testimony where he challenges that. And so I would, not try to censor or exempt that from presentation at the task force level. Let him make his case. for that. And if task force agrees or disagrees, whatever it is, that'll be what happens. But
Yeah, I'm not suggesting any censorship. I'm just saying I don't think I can vote that all these records are public.
well, okay. Well, we're just a recommending body anyway, so.
How about
this,
if we,
this came in as one complaint.
how about if we say that for purposes of just doing what we have to do here today, we say that certain public records are involved in this case. Therefore, it goes to the task force. That means we don't have to say that every record that's been discussed here today, that we have to make a decision. You know, we don't have to make a ruling of that they're all public.
Right.
I don't think.
I could support that. I mean, I could go along with that.
It does involve some public records. How about that? Okay.
Sure, that's fine. And then, whatever our presentation is, when it comes up to the task force, we can offer our findings as to, we find this particular group of documents not to be, consider that, we can, if somebody so chooses to present it in that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so what exactly is the motion?
Simple motion. It sounds like it turns out to be just a simple motion. Let's just send it on. Yeah.
Are we asking for any recommendations?
No.
So moved by Member Wolf, seconded by who?
I'll second it.
That we're saying that certain public records
Are involved.
are involved. Okay.
We have jurisdiction.
Right. And just to help assure that the file is complete, based upon what you presented, Member Stein, do you want to add any directive to the petitioner?
You phrased it was fine, but now I'm just that we recommend that the petitioner clarify which request is at issue in relation to each agency.
Perfect.
Okay, let's have opportunity for public comment.
Hang on.
If there are any members of the public who would like to make public comment, you can raise your hand at this time by pressing *3 or otherwise using the application to raise your hand. I'm not seeing any indication of public comment for these matters.
Okay, we can vote.
No, I got to read this back. Moved by Member Wolf, seconded by Chair Schmidt, that certain public records are involved, there is jurisdiction, and move the matter to the task force and recommend that the petitioner clarify which request is at issue in relation to each agency.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay. Vote. This motion, does it apply as a general, an all-encompassing motion for all?
Yeah, I think that
agencies?
I don't see any reason why we need to keep these separate. I don't think there's that much complexity in this that something has to divide them up.
All right. Member Wolf.
Aye.
Member Wolf, aye. Chair Schmidt.
Aye.
Chair Schmidt, aye. Member Stein.
Aye.
Member Stein, aye. Okay, so our next. Ready for the next item? Chair Schmidt?
Yes, please.
Item number 11, announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items by members of the complaint committee.
Nothing from me. No. Anything, members?
Nope, not here.
Okay. Next item.
Item number 12, adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, I have 7:56.
Okay.
Good evening, folks. Good to see you.
All right.
See you in a couple weeks.